Hey folks, this is Wistful Deal here, and I'm gonna make this small little rant video here because I finally discovered the main issue of the GPU that I've been having issues with here and everything. So, to get a bit of backstory and a little bit of context real fast here and everything, right? So a little while back, I made a video stating that I've switched over from NVIDIA to AMD with a new graphics card and GPU and everything. But unfortunately, as we all face challenges in life, I have faced a challenge that really did not make sense to me until now. And I'll get to that in a bit here. So basically, what I have discovered here is that anytime I would open up a game or whatever here, right, even at low settings and everything, even with all of the graphics drivers installed here and everything, and monitoring, the status, the heat, all the numbers and shit, the blah 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 speed, and the clockwork and VRAM, just all of the status and the monitoring of how everything's going, right, and everything. I would still frequently get green screens for an ungodly no reason why. And I was not too entirely sure what it would even happen or why exactly or whatever. And I was having a big issue for the biggest time trying to figure out what the main issue was or whatever. I couldn't even play Roblox without getting a green screen or whatever. It was just the most bizarre thing ever. Now, you folks don't know what a green screen is. It's basically the same thing as a blue screen. The only difference is instead of the CPU malfunctioning to where your computer gets a seizure from the CPU, your computer gets a seizure basically from the GPU, aka the graphics card or whatever, right? Because that's what happened, and that's what's been kind of stated according to my research and whatnot, that whenever you get a green screen, it's mainly the GPU that gets a seizure, and thus the whole computer gets a seizure because of that. Whereas a blue screen, and that's most famous, is when your GPU gets a seizure for either being too hard or whatever, or whatnot, or too many programs for the computer brain to handle or whatever, right? And it gets a digital seizure in a sense, that kind of whole ordeal or whatever. But anyway, long story short, I was having a struggle trying to figure out exactly why I kept getting these green screens and why even on Roblox, one of the most bare bone games that like anyone can even play. You can even play it on like I don't know a dinosaur flip phone if you wanted to from the mid 2000s to freaking play on Roblox. One of the most bare bone games to like even scratch the surface of even you know normal average GPUs, let alone the beast of the one that I have. I finally discovered just now that it's all thanks to this little freaking guy. This little piece of shit right here. This has been the main issue. And for the longest time, I didn't think this guy would be the main issue, right? Because it's just a leg holder. That's it. It's just a holder up place for the GPU because the GPU is obviously, much heavier than my old one and whatnot. And I really didn't think this little bastard would be an issue cause. My only interpret guess is that maybe it pushes the GPU slot a bit upwards too much because honestly, right, when you're inserting something in RAM sticks, GPU, or whatever, it has to be specifically in there correctly, right? And you have to make sure nothing's in the way, and you have to make sure you have to be very precise with it. So with the PCI 40 or whatever the hell, right? That little insert slot in the motherboard per se. It also has like a little click thing on the side, just for an extra stability, you know, click or whatever. So the GPU is a bit more firm. I really didn't think honestly that this guy was would be an issue because all this guy does is it's just meant to it's just a safety net. That's it, right? That's legit it. But no, apparently with that guy on, I would get GPU seizures and stuff, and I have no idea for the life of me. And my only guess is that it's either it would push a bit too upward, too well, it will make the PCI, whatever slot thing, you know, the insert cable a bit too up or whatever. I guess it was either that or that this little tippy top piece up here, that top up there, would be too pressed against the bottom surface before the fans, maybe, and it would be pushing up against, I don't know, a heat sink wire or some crap or whatever. I'm not too entirely sure, but my main discovery with this is that actually I swapped back over to my old GPU, just to kind of see and test that out with the Nvidia drivers and everything. I'm like, okay, that seems fine and everything. So when I switched over to back over to the I just kept switch swapping over just to make sure and to test things out here and everything. And I noticed that the second time around, after I'm like, okay, the NVIDIA one's pretty good. Let's go back to this AMD one. I didn't have this guy on. And I was like, okay, I guess everything's good now and stuff. But as soon as I put this little freaking guy back on, I started getting issues again. And I am not too exactly sure what's going on or why this little bastard is causing such an issue for my GPU. I don't know, maybe it's like a cursed thing or whatever or something, but it just leaves me kind of baffled and confused as to why my GPU would be having like such an issue with this to, well, I would just get green screens on even Roblox, like I can barely even scratch a surface on a game without my GPU freaking out and making my whole computer freak out and fall apart or whatever, and green screens and stuff. It's honestly just very confusing to me. I've tested this on a few games now and everything seems pretty good now. All the games that I wasn't able to play before, it would be like on a time or whatever, and I have like a shit ton of games, I would play Mankind Divided, Deus Ex or whatever, and a bunch of other games and everything. Some very demanding, and some not even demanding at all, like Roblox. And so far, with this guy out of the way, everything's already okay. Everything's good. Everything's fine. I can play my games high, low setting, freaking, frickin' whatever. It's all good. But as soon as I put this little bastard on, I can't even do low settings without my computer freaking out. I can't even do a stress test, a minimum 15-second stress test without my computer freaking out or whatever. So, yeah, it just kind of baffles me on how that could happen. Maybe you folks in the comments could tell me, maybe or so. I'm not too entirely sure. So yeah, so it turns out my everything's perfectly fine. My GPU's perfectly fine or whatever until this guy gets on it, and then it all goes to shit or whatever. It just kind of baffles me, and I really do not know exactly how or why exactly it happens or this happens or whatever. But you know what? Well enough is well, and I'm gonna leave well enough alone overall. You know. So yeah. That's all I really just kind of wanted to talk about and leave my stress on. It's also kind of why I haven't been uploading the past few days because I just, because I test firmly and I like to make sure that all my games would be okay and fine and everything. I'm mainly a gamer, first and foremost and everything, besides a content creator and a horror, content YouTuber or whatever. I'm mainly an action person. And if with action games and stuff, things can get real tense real fast. and my GPU before with the stick thing couldn't even handle the thinnest scratches of just Roblox explosions or whatever, bare bones of extremes and whatnot. But yeah, I just mainly just wanted to let my frustration out and talk to you folks as to why this little sucker here sucks, and maybe I could use it as a weapon or something. I guess I don't know, something, make some form of use out of it. I don't know, maybe grind it. I have no idea. But yeah, I'm not gonna have that guy on because it makes my computer freak out. I guess it's just odd to me. It just baffles me, because it's not really connected to anything. It's not connected to any wires. It's not brushing against the motherboard. It's not really, it's touching, but it's just like a leg stand. It's like if I inserted a new leg to this chair or some crap, or a dining chair, whatever, and all of a sudden the chair can't be stable, all because of this fifth extra leg or whatever. It's just weird to me because, on the contrary, it should be, the opposite. It should just be the GPU more firm, but everything good and fine and everything, instead of letting gravity do the work. But no, with this little bastard, it just is what it is, though. I also I also feel that my two latest videos, besides this one here, my two last videos, have been a bit under the weather. I definitely feel like my amnesia video definitely could have been a lot better instead of just running around with my head cut off like a freaking chicken, just completely clueless and not knowing what the hell I'm doing. But hopefully over on, but hopefully later on when I play more of the game and play more similar games like that with puzzles, I'll get better. It's kind of my first time around clearly with a puzzle game like that and stuff. So, yeah, it is what it is. And I also do feel like my part two to my reaction of The Moon Wakes Up could have been better as well, but you know what? It is what it is too. You have some lies and you have some highs and some lows sometimes, and whatnot. But yeah, that's all there really is for this video here, folks. I just mainly wanted to talk to you folks and my frustration with this little bastard here. I have no idea why I have issues with it whenever I put it on, but you know what? It just is what it is. So that's that, I guess. It's well enough, and I'm gonna leave well enough alone or whatever, So yeah. But anyway, I'm definitely gonna make some more content before I have to work this Saturday and Sunday, as you folks, all know here and everything, and as I said a bunch of times here and everything. So yeah, so that's all there really is to it with this video here. Nothing too much, just a little rant and to let my frustration out on how a little metal stick can cause such a seizure on my GPU with just the minimum of stuff. I don't know exactly why or how that happens. I personally don't get it, but you know what? At the end of the day, if it works, it works. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, kind of old deal. So, yeah, with all that being said and out of the way, that's all there really is to it with this video here and rant. So, with all that being said, thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to leave a like, leave a comment, hit subscribe for more. Also, don't forget to turn on notifications so you folks don't miss out on a future video or post that I make in the future. And that you can always be kept up to date with the channel here. And lastly, if you folks have any requests or suggestions, feel free to tell me down in the comments below. Alright, that's all there really is to it, folks. And I will see you all sooner or later. Bye bye, everyone.